Well met, knights, and welcome back to the Culinary Guild, where even when I've caught the plague, I bring you recipes to fuel your prayers in the Temple of Iron, as well as your conquests on the battlefield, because Lord knows those noobs aren't going to own themselves. A special thank you to Sir Arav the Powerful for today's culinary writ, submitted via our guild hall on Discord. A link for entry will be in the description should you wish to commune with your fellow knights, along with Arav's Instagram, even though he doesn't post very frequently, for additional inspiration in the Iron Pursuit. Personally, I can't take Wintergrass from the Alliance, or take first place in Sherbertland from your mum, without a nice, thick glass of creamy eggnog. And my aim in this video is to strike the perfect balance between macro-friendly, but also not so poverty that you're just drinking sweetened egg whites. Now, I've seen a lot of bodybuilding eggnog recipes in my time, most of which were nothing more than glorified protein shakes. And I won't stand for it, not in Rance's house, because eggnog is sacred, which is why we're going old school and cooking this eggnog just the way Grandma taught me. Actually, I never knew either one of my grandmothers, but if I had, I guarantee you they would have owned some news with this eggnog. Oh yeah, just one more tiny little thing before we start. If you want to walk up in here, in my guild, with some disrespect in your mouth, talking about some, you don't like eggnog? Your lips are unclean, and they're unfit for this holy nectar of the gods anyway. I'm Mulata Rance, this is Muscle and Magicka, and you, my friend, just accepted a quest. Ingredients: 30 grams of any vanilla protein powder. I'm using Optimum Nutrition's vanilla ice cream flavored whey because it's a basic brand with pretty standard macros that I figure most people should be able to get their hands on. But if you want to try something else, maybe a casein or a vegan protein powder, it shouldn't make that much of a difference since we're not adding the protein powder until the end after everything's already been cooked. 2 1/4 cups of milk. I'm using cashew milk. You can use whatever you prefer.
Where I come from, you drink whole milk. Unless you're a little bitch.
4 large eggs. I stole mine from this guy, but if you really want to save on those macros, you can use a substitute such as egg beaters.
Sure, if you prefer your eggnog as watered down as your resolve.
Now, vegans, flax eggs might work, but if you have access to a more direct, intentional substitute, such as the vegan egg yolk substitute, I suggest you go with that. And once we get to the egg whites later, I'll mention a replacement you can use for those as well. 1/2 cup of low-fat evaporated milk. Now, I'm using this to sub in for the heavy whipping cream traditionally used in eggnog. You know, just to make sure we're up to par in the cream department.
Too easy.
1 box of sugar-free, fat-free vanilla pudding mix. And honestly, if you want to save some extra macros here, you can actually get away with only using half the box. And apart from the final product not being quite as thick, I found that the recipe didn't really lose that much.
That's true, if you don't count self-respect.
1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, and 1/4 cup to 1/2 cup of a sweetener of your choice. I'm using Splenda. And of course, the most important ingredient, ground nutmeg. Stop right there, Templar! Do I need to remind you that we are still in No Nut November? Sirs! Fortunately, nutmeg is a seed, not a nut, but I think you better just go ahead and use the powdered stuff. I don't trust you with these up and down motions right now, and I especially don't want you doing anything you wouldn't do while Cormac was watching. And he's always watching.
Betrayal can never be forgiven.
The first thing we're going to do is add our 2 cups of milk and our 1/2 cup of evaporated milk into a pot and whisk in our pudding until it's fully mixed. Like me. Now turn the heat on to a medium-low. While we wait for that to warm up, we're going to separate our eggs. Now, it's very important that you don't get any yolk in the egg whites. So if you see a yolk start to break on you like this one did, make a beeline for that yolk bowl.
Oh, really? And what would you know about being yoked?
The reason for this is that the egg whites won't whip properly with any amount of fat mixed up in them, which is also why I'm using the eggshell method of separation instead of using my fingers and risking getting oil from my hands all up in there. Besides, you can't trust anyone who separates eggs with their hands. Once that's done, go ahead and whisk the 1/4 cup of sweetener in with the yolks until you've got a nice custard-like consistency. What we're looking for here is for our milk mixture to get to the point where it's not quite boiling yet, but there is a whole lot of steam coming out of it. If you're measuring temperature, that might be somewhere around 140 or 150 degrees Fahrenheit. If it's taking forever, just bump that bad boy up to medium and make sure you keep stirring from time to time.
Are you ever afraid in battle?
Once she gets to steaming, take her off the heat and turn the burner back down to medium-low. Our task now is to slowly introduce the warm mixture to our egg yolks a little bit at a time. This is called tempering, and what we're doing is gradually bringing the temperature of the egg yolks up to the temperature of the rest of the mixture. Which is important, unless of course you like the idea of drinking a glass of sweet scrambled eggs. I'll be right back. Nope, it's very unpleasant. Once you've mixed in a couple scoops of warmth and love, you can go ahead and pour your egg yolks back into the pot, making sure to stir constantly as you add them in.
We must be ready to finish this work, if he cannot.
As we return our pot to the heat, what we want to do is bring the temperature up to 160 degrees, and ideally cook it there for about 3 minutes, maintaining constant vigilance with the stirring. I like to try to keep it between 160 and 170, but what you don't want is for the temperature to go above 180, because otherwise you're gonna be drinking some eggs. Once that's finished, we're off the burner for good, so you can turn off the heat. Before we can proceed any further, we need our mixture to be room temperature. Now you couldn't sit around and wait for Mountain Blade 2 to come out. It'll almost definitely be room temperature by then, but you'll never finish the eggnog because you'd be too busy playing Mountain Blade 2. So to speed this up, I suggest you place the pot in a bowl of cold water, and you can throw some ice cubes in there if you want it to cool even faster. While we're waiting for that and also still waiting for Mountain Blade, we're gonna mix our protein powder with a 1/4 cup of milk until it's smoothly blended. Like me! And finally, it's time to whip up them egg whites. A quick word for any vegans who have made it this far in an eggnog video, egg whites are possibly the most difficult thing to replace in this recipe. However, I have it on good authority that there is a fantastic egg white substitute by the name of aquafaba, which is the liquid that you find at the bottom of a can of chickpeas. Supposedly it whips up just like egg whites. Just remember that 2 tablespoons of aquafaba are equal to 1 egg white. Now this is purely optional, but once your whites start to get frothy, I like to add in an additional 1/4 cup of sweetener, just like we did with the yolks. But if you're someone who's very sensitive to the artificial sweetener taste, you may choose to skip this step since we've already got a 1/4 cup in the recipe. Or you can just use a different sweetener. Now we're not going for any stiff peaks here, and we don't even really want soft peaks. Just go for that nice, lathery shaving cream consistency. Once our eggnog is down to room temperature, we add our vanilla and our nutmeg, making sure to stir the nutmeg in fully so that it's not clumpy. And in goes that protein. By the way, the reason we're adding our protein powder in now is because I tried mixing it in earlier, and it cooked, and it curdled. And trust me, unless you're Miss Muppet, you don't want to eat your curds and whey. The final step is incorporating our egg whites. Now, as you remember, our yolks have been cooked, but these are raw egg whites. And if you're really worried about the possibility of salmonella, I mean, Gaston wasn't, but that's fine if you are. You can either buy pre-pasteurized eggs, or you can actually pasteurize your own eggs right at home. It's a very simple process, and I will link a video in the description below that teaches you how to do just that.
When I was a lad, I drank 4 dozen eggs every morning to help me kill Freezer. I like Gaston.
Once the egg whites are fully incorporated, pop that honey in the fridge for at least 3 hours, but preferably overnight. And get ready to wake up in the morning to this sweet, seductive temptress of Yuletide desire. Oh, baby. Oh, baby. Now, I know you're wondering what this tastes like, especially seeing as how I've been sick and couldn't taste a damn thing for almost the entire 3 days that it took me to formulate this recipe. But I had Vegeta do a taste test, and he told me to tell you that this recipe will make you slap your mama.
What? I never said.
But guess what? Even if you made some substitutions, you still gonna be slapping your mama. Just probably you're gonna catch her at the tip of the fingers here, whereas if you made it just like I showed you, she'll be getting that full palm. Whoa! If you haven't already, subscribe to the Order of Muscle and Magicka so that I can help you level up your fitness and fight against the forces of bro magic. And remember, every time someone doesn't like eggnog, a Templar loses his light. Stay vigilant, knights. Oh. Rance! No, it's making eggnog. It's making eggnog!